Looks like it's working, right?
It's working, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Good morning, Morai Rabotai. We are continuing our Masechet Berachot, and we are on Daf Nun Tet, Amud Aleph, 23 lines up from the bottom by 2 dots. Ve'al habrakim. So we learned in the Mishnah that you say bracha on brakim. Says the Gemara, what is brachim? Ve'al habrakim omer baruch shekucho gvurato malei olam. Same bracha that we had last time, that on brakim you say shekucho gvurato malei olam. Says the Gemara, my brakim, what are brakim? Amar Rava barka. It is lightning. On lightning, you make a bracha. Amar Rava, and Rava also said in regards to brakim, in regards to lightnings, barka yechida, if you only have one lightning, barka chivra, if you have a white lightning, ubarka yerokta, and if you have a green lightning, and again, these depend on how they appear to us, depends on what is involved with the re'amim and brakim, as we mentioned before.
We do winds.
Ve'anadi, the salkan, and also a cloud that comes up the keren maravit, that they come up on the western corner, and then they move into south, ve'atyan mikeren deromit, and they come to us from south. Ve'tarti anani de salkan chada le'apeh chaverta, and 2 clouds that they come up approaching each other, one towards another, kulun kashan, they're all not good signs. So Gemara says, so what's nafkamina? Why are you saying this? The my nafkamina. What is the difference for us? Says the Gemara, let me buy rachami. You want to ask for filah, ask for rachamim, that they should not affect us negatively. Says the Gemara, v'hanemidi belelia. All of this that we say it's not good, it's negative, it's if this happens at night. If it's in the morning, it's not real. It's not going to happen. Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak. Shmuel bar Yitzchak says, Hani anani the safra let behu mashash. If you have clouds in the morning, it means nothing. It's not going to rain. They're going to be scattered around before you know it, and you'll have a normal, sunny, nice day, and they're not real. Dichtiv, as the pasuk says, v'chasdechem ka'anan boker. Your chesed, Hashem says, is ka'anan boker. It shows like it's going to rain, but it's really not going to rain. And yours also, you show that you want to do chesed, but it's not real. You don't end up doing it. So you see from this pasuk that the example of something that shows to be real and it doesn't happen at the end is this very thing of anan boker. So if you see ananim, if you see clouds in the morning, don't worry about it. You could go about your life and nothing happens. The Gemara says, really? Amri inshi. So we learned exactly the opposite, because this is such a strong thing to the degree that people say, Kad miftach Babi Mitra, if you open your door in the morning and you see it's raining, it's cloudy, Bar Chamra, if your job is selling stuff, you load stuff on your donkey and you go around selling stuff, Moch Sakech, fold your stuff and put it under your head and go back to sleep, because that day you're not going to be selling anything. If it's raining in the morning, it's got to be raining the whole day, and you take the day off and have a nice day. So you see that Anan Boker is exactly the opposite of what you said. Not only it's not nothing, but it's going to be raining the whole day. So
Is that okay? We do winds. We were up more.
Can we go back maybe 3-4 lines before where we started? Va'ala ruchot, if you say that. Va'ala ruchot, the Gemara says, my ruchot, what is winds? Amar Rabbi zafa. It's a wind that comes very strong with force. Va'amar Rabbi gemiri de zafa belel yadohavya. Gemara says, we learned that this type of strong wind is not going to be at night. Gemara says, well, we do see it, that happens. Gemara says, no, hahu te'atchuli biyemama. That also, even though that it continues throughout the night, but it starts during the day. Abaye said another teaching, gemiri the zafa tarte shayi lo kai. Gemara says, Abaye taught us that this type of strong wind is not going to last for 2 hours. Says the Gemara, as we learned, the kayem shenemar, to establish what the pasuk teaches, lo takum pa'amayim tzara, that 2 times 2 tzarot is not going to happen. So this is the zafa, the strong wind. It is a negative thing. And therefore, 2 of them is not going to happen. 2 hours, you're not going to. So Gemara says, wait a second, 2 hours is nothing. We do have 2 hours of strong wind. What are you saying? You don't have 2 hours. The Gemara says that yes, but they're not going to be straight. You're going to always have less than 2 hours to stop between them, and they could start again afterwards. So says the Gemara, we do see that they last more than 2 hours. The Gemara says the mafsik beni, that they do stop in the middle, and then they continue afterwards. Back to where we are a minute ago, says the Gemara. So you see, if you have a strong cloud and you have some rain in the morning, you can go to sleep. Nothing is going to happen that day. So which one is it? Is it that when you see clouds in the morning, the Gemara said there's no reality in it, it's going to scatter around and be okay? Or is it a serious sign of rain the entire day? Exactly the opposite. So Gemara says, no, Kasha, it's not a question. It depends on what type of clouds we're talking about. If you wake up in the morning and you see some ananim, some light clouds, that's nothing. That's not a sign of any serious rain. The sun comes out, the scatters all of the clouds, and you're going to be good to go. But if you wake up in the morning and you have iba, which is thick clouds, you have, the whole sky is tied up with, thick, dark clouds, that's a sign of rain, and that's a rain that probably is going to end staying for the better part of the day. Says the Gemara, look, Asha, it's not a question. One of them is when the sky is filled with iba, which is thick cloud, that is a sign of the whole day raining. But the other one is talking about just light clouds, which usually when you see that in the morning, it's not a sign of anything. For the most part, they're going to just scatter around, and they could be a sunny, beautiful day. Says the Gemara, Amar Alexandri, Amar Rabbi Shimon Levi. Rabbi Alexandri said in the name of Rabbi Shimon Levi, Lo nivneu ra'amim ela lifshot akmumiyot shebalev. Why? You know why thunders were created? Why do you have thunders? Says the Gemara, it's a sign from Hashem, lifshot akmumiyot shebalev, to straighten up the crookedness of a person's heart. In other words, you hear a loud thunder and you get that one moment of scare, right? And that's supposed to be like a wake-up call. Say the Chafetz Chaim, see, a person reads this Gemara, he says, oh, a nice Gemara. And then there's a person that lives with the Gemara. They say Chafetz Chaim, whenever he heard the thunder, he would pause and he would say in Farsi, Wasvil the Tate? What does the father want? What's the father? You ask yourself a question. So what does he want? It's supposed to be a sign. So I'm going to do something a little bit better. Because that's the fshot at akmumiyot shebalev. Gemara says they were created to give you a little wake-up call, a little alarm, to do something better. Says the Gemara.
Solomon, well, it said the name of the Yomi. It says, why does it rain after this? It says, because in the schus, we have some yid saying, and that schus, the rain will come.
There we go. So that's again when the Ra'amim do their job and you make a bracha, that by itself has a zchut of the protection of rain of bracha. Says the Gemara. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, "Veha Elohim asa sheyiru milefanav." Hashem did it in order for people to have reverence from Him, a healthy fear from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So here's one of those creations. The fact that you have thunders, a scary voice that is created in the system of creation, it is a little wake-up call, and it's of course followed with bracha. In that spirit that you just mentioned, you also say we talk about always chinuch of having positive versus negative, of maintaining it 80-20 thing. You always have to have more positivity. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives bracha right afterwards, but there's a little thing that comes of a little scare, a little lafshit akmumiyot shebalev, and then you have bracha afterwards. Says the Gemara, Ve'amar Rab Alexandri. Once we are learning about the teachings of Rabbi Alexandri, another piece that he said is in the name of Rabbi Yusha ben Levi, Haro'eh et hakeshet, when you see the rainbow, sarich sheipol al panav, you should fall on your face. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, kemar'eh hakeshet asher yeh be'anan, like the sight of the rainbow that you see in the clouds. Va'er'eh va'epol al panai, and he says, I see it, I saw it, and I fell on my face. This is the pasuk that you have in Yechezkel Hanavi. But the Gemara says, "Light yale b'marava mishum demichzik keban desagid." So this is something that in Eretz Yisrael, not only they did not praise, but they cursed someone that does this. Why? Because it looks like you're bowing down to the rainbow. You're worshiping all kinds of avodah zarah, worshiping sun and moon and whatnot. And this one looks like you're falling on your face, you're bowing down to this element of nature called rainbow. So therefore, it's not a good thing. The optics of it is very negative. So therefore, in Eretz Yisrael, they would curse someone that does this. The mixi command the sagid the kashta, because it looks like you are bowing down to the keshet. Aval beruchi v'atay mevarech. But certainly you do make a bracha. What bracha do you make? Now, well, what is the sign of rainbow? Right? It's a sign of the covenant that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created that is no longer going to destroy the world. Which would mean that if that sign is shown, there would have been reason for the world to be destroyed, and Hashem is reminding himself of that sign. Gemara says in the years of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, there was no keshet. The whole entire years of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, in the schut of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, there was never a keshet that was seen in his times. So it's not a good sign. That's why, hence, you're not supposed to gaze at it, right? That also explains maybe the signs that were particularly and meticulously chosen for what it represents nowadays. But the Gemara says, what bracha do you make? So now, understanding that this is the sign, says the Gemara, you make the bracha of Zochera Berit. You bless Hashem that He remembers His covenant not to destroy the world. The Matnita Tana, in the Braita we learned, Rabbi Ishmael ben Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka Omer. Rabbi Ishmael, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, says, Ne'eman bibrito v'kayam b'ma'amaro. That's the bracha that you make. That he is faithful to the covenant that he made, v'kayam b'ma'amaro, and he keeps what he has promised. So Papa, like always he does, when you have a machloket in Nusach HaBracha, Papa always says, you know what? We will incorporate both languages in the bracha, and here he does the same thing. Amar Papa Hilkach Nimrinhu Letarvaihu. We are going to say both of them. Baruch Zocher HaBerit, and this is what we do say. You say Zocher HaBerit, Neman Bibrito V'Kayam B'Mamaro, that would become the bracha on the rainbow. Ve'al, and again, this is a whole thing that you do see it, you don't gaze at it. It's a whole question if you tell your friend or not, because this is not necessarily a good sign, it's a negative sign. But when you do realize that there is a keshet, that is the bracha that you would make. Al harim v'al gvaot, on mountains and hilltops, you make a bracha of oseh maaseh bereshit, the Mishnah said, right? The Mishnah says when you see mountains, you see hilltops, you say the bracha of oseh maaseh bereshit. So it says Gemara, wait a second. You only woke up right now and you say oseh maaseh bereshit, and these, all of the things that you mentioned before also are maaseh bereshit, also are the handiwork of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All the things that we said up until now are not maaseh bereshit, and you only say Baruch oseh maaseh bereshit and these. V'haketiv, doesn't it say in the pasuk berakim lamatar asa, that Hashem has created brakim lamatar, and that's also asa oseh maaseh bereshit. Brakim also is part of oseh maaseh bereshit. Amar Abaye, kroch betani. You have to wrap it up together. That means on all of the previous things also you make oseh maaseh bereshit. On brakim, we mentioned that you say shekocho gvurato maleh olam. We mentioned that you make a bracha of shekocho gvurato maleh olam on a lightning, on a thunder. Says the Gemara, you make two brachot. You make shekocho gvurato maleh olam. You also make oseh maaseh bereshit, because it is oseh maaseh bereshit. But on these one, on hilltops and so on, you only make one. The Tani, and we learned Rabba Amar. Rabba said, "Hatam mevarech tarti, baruch shkocho maleh olam, oseh maaseh bereshit." Over there you make two brachot. Oseh maaseh bereshit ika. Here you only make oseh maaseh bereshit because this is a sign reminding us of HaKadosh Baruch Hu being the creator. But there is no shekocho gvurato maleh olam. Right? Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yishua ben Levi, haro'eh rakia b'tarata. If you see a clear sky, you also make a bracha. Omer baruch oseh bereshit or oseh maaseh bereshit. You make the same bracha. Ematai. What is considered a clear sky? Says the Gemara, Amar Abaye ki ata mitra kulelia. When the entire night is raining, so it clears off the air, and in the Safra in the morning, ata astana, a strong northern wind comes, umegalia lehu l'shmaya, it blows out the wind, the clouds rather, and you see the clear sky, a clear weather, everything is washed off nice and clear. That is considered a clear sky that you say bracha. Says the Gemara, not so fast. Upeligi the Raf from Bar Papa. This teaching is in contrast with Raf from Bar Papa, who says in the name of Rav Chisda, the Amar Raf from Bar Papa Amar Rav Chisda, Miyom sheharav Bet HaMikdash, from the day the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed, lo nir'it rakia b'tarata. The sky is never completely fully clear. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Hashem says, "Albish shamayim kadrut v'sak asim sutam," as if to say, Shamayim is wearing sackcloth and is going to be covered. Is never going to be completely clear until the rebuilding of the temple. That's therefore Afram Bar Papa in the name of Krista says, you will never say this bracha while we're in Galut, because it's never going to be 100% clear. Tanu Rabbanan, on the top of Nun Ted Amud Bet. Haro'eh chama b'tkufata levana b'gvurata v'kochavim b'msirotam u'mazalot kesidran omer baruch oseh maaseh bereshit or oseh bereshit. 4 items. The tkufa of chama, we'll see what that means, and the levana b'gvurata, the moon in its full strength, kochavim b'msirotam, the stars in their pathway, and mazalot in their order, you make a bracha of oseh maaseh bereshit. Ve'emat haver, when is that going to be? When is Chama B'Tkufata? What does that mean, Chama B'Tkufata? Chama B'Tkufata means the sun is in exact position of when the Briat Olam happened, when it was put actually in its orbit, when it was put in the Shamayim, the way we have it in the original Maaseh Bereshit on a Wednesday, right? B'Yom Revi'i, they were put into action. Then when it goes back, everything, the whole setup goes back to that exact setup. That's when you make the bracha. Says the Gemara, when does that happen? Amar Abaye kol kafket shenim. It's every 28 years, right? We finish Amud Yomi cycle twice in that time. So every 28 years you have the sun being exactly in that. Now, when is this? This is when the equinox of Nisan, the two equinoxes, the equinox of Nisan falls in the Mazal Shabtai, Saturn, and that happens exactly in the exchange of the day of Tuesday evening going to Wednesday, that means 6 o'clock p.m. And an equinox, that would be 6 o'clock. Now, this happens every single year, but for it to happen, align with the Mazal Shabtai and happen on Tuesday, on that time, on the equinox, that happens every 28 years, right? So most of the people here probably have said it only once, and it's a rare bracha. Well, they were pretty actually sophisticated in astrology and understanding of these things. Indeed, the Gemara says the exact amount of time that passes in between two molads of the Levana, and the amount of accuracy of it is to 1/10,000th of a second. The Gemara gives a number down to 1/10,000th of a second. And a bunch of decades ago, when the NASA did their thing with Hubble and everything, they came out to a number that was only 2/10,000th of a second different than what Gemara says. And then the Germans did another thing. They made it a little bit more exact, and they came 1/10,000th of a second closer to that. And some Goyish scientists actually wrote an article. When they showed him the Gemara, he was flabbergasted. He wrote, "There's no way humanly possible that anyone 2,000 years ago knew this without what we have nowadays." And the whole article about the amazement that he experienced reading the Gemara when they showed him that the same number has been mentioned 2,000 years ago by the Jewish sources. So again, there is what to be said about that. Now we're going to do what we do, and we're going to go back there. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda, 2 dots. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Haro'eh Hayam Hagadol. We mentioned that if you see Hayam Hagadol, you make a bracha. And we also mentioned that there is an ambiguity surrounding what exactly is called Hayam Hagadol. Is it the Mediterranean Sea? Because the Pasuk calls it Yam Hagadol, and it's because of Chashivut of Eretz Yisrael that's called Yam Hagadol. Or is it that in regards to the bracha, Hayam Hagadol means the greatest Okeanus, Yama Okeanus, which in our language would be the greatest. What's the greatest ocean? Atlantic Ocean. Oh, it's Pacific Ocean. Pacific Ocean, right? Pacific Ocean is the greatest. So it says the Gemara. Again, we mentioned that there is a machloket around that. Now the Gemara says when we said that you say the bracha only if you see the Yam Hagadol periodically. What is called periodically? It means once a year. It means once a day. Says the Gemara, no. Lifrakim at kama. What is considered lifrakim? Says the Gemara. Amar Rami bar Abba. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak at 30 yom. Once in every 30 days. So if you haven't seen it for 30 days, and you get to see it now, then you make a bracha. So if you haven't been, and people who don't live necessarily in the West Coast, or if you don't go to the beach that often, and you go once in a month. If you haven't seen it for 30 days, that's the bracha that you would make. Now, because of the machloket surrounding what is considered Yom HaGadol, you could perhaps say the bracha where they actually meet together. There is a place that people will go and make this bracha, because you see basically both of them at the same time. And again, otherwise, many people say it without Shavu Malchut. Says the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Haro'eh Frat Agishra de Bavel. If you see the river of Frat by the place that you have the bridge of Bavel, Omer Baruch Oseh Maaseh Bereshit. You say Baruch Oseh Bereshit. What does that mean? It means that you have a massive and long river of Frat, but only in this place of the Frat, Gemara says you could make the bracha of Oseh Bereshit. Why is that? Because that place was not tampered with and was not altered by human hand, and you saw what was there from the time of Bereshit, from the time of the creation. Therefore, the Gemara says that which has not been tampered with the hand of human beings, you could make a bracha on, and that's the place that we know could not have been changed really much, or wasn't changed by human beings, is that area by the bridge of Bavel. So if you pass the bridge of Bavel and you see Frat, you make a bracha. And Mara says, Ha'idna, the Shaniu Parsai, now that the Persians have changed even that area of it to some extent, Mi Beshabur Olein, only from Beshabur and on, that's the part that you could make a bracha on, because that has not been tampered with. Says the Gemara, Rav Yosef Amar, Mehi de Kira Olein. There's a different place. Amar Rami Baraba, Haro'eh di Gelet, if you see the river of the Gelet, Agishra, the Shebistana, if you see it in the place that you have the bridge of Shebistana, Omer Baruch Oseh Bereshit. That's where you say the bracha Oseh Maaseh Bereshit. My Chidekel. Why is it called this river Chidekel? Says the Gemara Amar Rabashi Shememav Chadin Vekalim. The waters of it are sharp and light. They're very clear waters. So my Frat, and why is Frat called Frat? Shememav Parin Veravim. That the waters of Frat are Pare Verave. They multiply. It's always pumping with tremendous amounts of water. So Amar Rava said, Hi the Harifi ben Mechuzam. The reason that the residents of Mechuzam, he was a Shiva there, they are so sharp, Mishum de Digelet, because they drink the water that's clear, as we mentioned just a moment ago. They are clear and light. It has a great quality water, and that affects their function during the day as well, says the Imam. Hi, the Gichori Mishom, the Mesham Mama, the reason that they are red, the people of Mechuzah, is because they have Tashma Shabita during the day. The high, the Naidi Naihu, and the reason that their eyes move or jump is Mishum, the Dairu Bebet Afed, because they live in houses that don't have enough natural light. They have darker houses, and that's the reason that they have this issue with their eyes. Ala Gshamim. We mentioned in the Mishnah that you make a bracha on Gshamim as well. So what bracha you make al Gshamim? You make Hatova Metiv. So says the Gemara, Vala Gshamim Hatova Metiv Mevarech. You say Hatova Metiv veHamar Rabbi Abahu veAmri La beMatnita Tana. Didn't we learn the name of Rabbi Abahu? And there are those who say this is in a braita. Me'matai mevarchin al Geshamim. When do we start saying a bracha on Geshamim? Misheyetzeh Chatan likrat kala. When Chatan goes to greet the kala, which is a way of saying when you have so much rain that the droplets of rain are not falling on the ground, they're falling on small puddles of water on the ground, and that creates an effect that the droplet hits and droplets go up because of that hit. So that's Chatan and Kala. the droplets of water are going towards each other because there's so much water already on the ground, that's the time that you make a bracha. Says the Gemara, my mevarchin, what's the bracha that we make? Amar Rabbi Yehuda, modim anachnu lach. We make the bracha of modim anachnu lach. So what happened with Atov v'Ametiv? We learned in the Matnita, Atana, we learned that the bracha that you make from the time that Chatan and Kala, that's this whole droplet thing, the bracha is modim anachnu lach. Al kol tipa v'tipa she'orata lanu. Rabbi Yochanan mesayem ba, and Rabbi Yochanan ends the bracha saying ilu pinu mareshila kayam. Right? We know the rest of these psukim, beautiful psukim. That's what you say at the end. The whole paragraph. And you say it until the whole komalecha tishtachaveh. Baruch ata Hashem, rov ha'odaot. And you end the bracha with rov ha'odaot. And the Gemara says, well, rov ha'odaot, v'lo kol ha'odaot. Say most of the things, but not the whole thing. Why were you withholding some things from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Says the Gemara, no. Therefore, you say, Amar Rava, Ema Hakel HaOdaot. You're Hashem that is the master of all thanks, that all thanks are directed towards you. So that's what Rabbi Yochanan says you make the bracha for. And of course, as we mentioned before, Rav Papa, when you have machloket in the nusach of the brachot, he says, let's say both of them. Amar Rav Papa, hilkach nimrinhu letarvayhu. Rov ha'odaot ve'hakel ha'odaot. We say both. Say rov ha'odaot, and we say hakel ha'odaot. Ve'ela kasha. But we brought this whole thing to say a question. Our Mishnah says, when it rains, you make a bracha hatov v'ametiv. This Braita says when it rains, you make a whole long text of thing ending with the bracha of hakel ha'odaot. So which one is it? Do you say modim anachnu lach, or do you say hatov v'ametiv? Says the Gemara lo kasha. It's not a question. Hade shama mishma, hade chaza michzi. One of them is when you hear it, the other one is when you actually experience it and you actually see it. That's the time that you say a bracha of modim. In other words, if you only hear about it, they come and tell you, last night there was geshamim, it was amazing, and that's a sign, that's reason for happiness because people had lands, people were involved with agricultural system and so on. That means bracha, that means food, that means water. So if they told you, you didn't see it yourself, you make the bracha v'tov v'ametiv. But if you actually see it yourself, you experience it, you say this whole long paragraph that we just mentioned. Says the Gemara, Hainu besorot tovot. V'tnan al besorot tovot omer, baruch hatov v'ametiv. So if that's the case, that you only hear about it having had rain, so that is like a regular Besorah Tova. If somebody gives you a good news, you also make Hatov v'ametiv. So it can't be that this is a Besorah Tova, that someone came and told you, you know what happened? It rained, and now you're going to have a great field, a great year of produce. That is considered good news. And we already know that on good news, you make Hatov v'ametiv. So that can't be the shot in the Mishnah, because our Mishnah says both of them, and that would be superfluous and would not be needed. It's not, so that's not the shot the Gemara says. Ella, idi ve'idi, dechazi michzi. Both of them are when you experience the rain, you see the rain. So what's the difference? The difference is, it's not a question. Had ata. Purta hada tuva. If it comes a little bit, is one bracha. If it comes a lot of rain, then it's a different bracha. A little rain is hatov v'ametiv, and more rain when you have droplets hitting each other. Well, and there's water sitting on the ground from rov hageshamim. Then you make the second whole paragraph of the bracha of hakel ha'odaot. Says Gemara, I could also answer in a different way. Hava hadata tuva. Both of them are talking about the law of the rain. But kasha still is not the question. It's not the kasha. One of them is talking about a case that you own your own land, and the other one is talking about the case that you don't own a land, but still you're going to you're going to benefit definitely from the rain, not directly, but by the means of other people benefiting from it. Indirectly, you're going to be benefiting from rain, and therefore you make a different bracha. So says the Gemara, if you have your own land, you make the Hatov Hamitiv, you make the bracha of Hatov Hamitiv. Says the Gemara, Veha Tanya Bara Bayit Chadash, we learned that if you build a new house, or you buy new stuff, new vessels, new clothing, Omer Baruch Shechianu v'Higianu Lazman Hazeh, you say Brachav Shechianu. Says the Gemara, Shelo v'Shel Acherim Omer Hatov Hamitiv. Only when there are more beneficiaries of the good, then you make Hatov Hamitiv. If it's something that you're going to be using and others are going to be using with you, that's when you say Hatov Hamitiv. So says the Gemara, why would you make Hatov Hamitiv just because you have a land? That's very selfish. It's my land. So I suggest Shechianu. Why Hatov Hamitiv? We learned that the klal of Hatov Hamitiv is if you buy a car that you're going to only use, Shechianu. If your wife is going to also use it, or it's a family car, that's Hatov Hamitiv, because Hatov for me, Metiv to other people. That's the core difference between Hatov Hamitiv and Shechianu. In other words, Hatov Hamitiv is just the plural form of Shechianu. Says the Gemara, Lo kasha. It's not a question. If you have partnership with other people, that's when you say Hatov Hamitiv. If you don't, then you only say Shechianu. And here we're talking about the case that you have a land with shutafut with other people, so it's not just good for you, it's good for them as well. The Gemara is going to challenge this and reestablish it again, and Rezat Hashem will continue that in the next class.